But that still might work for you. So don't pigeonhole yourself,
Right.
hey, just don't pigeonhole yourself. Stick to the values, stick to the principles, and stick to why you really want to run. Because let me tell you, it's wide open for a new leadership that can run. It's wide open.
Okay, thank you.
I may not get this opportunity, but thank you for everything that you're sharing with me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Oh,
it.
you're quite welcome.
I wanted to ask, what are some books that you would recommend that we should have on our shelves to read, ideally, to just kind of help us get a good foundation?
Sure.
What are some books that you hold dear, that you refer to from time to time? And then also, are there any magazines, trade magazines, anything like that, to kind of get an idea of what's happening politically in different spectrums?
Sure. Yeah, very good. Let me cut to that to answer that question. I maybe once or twice for a dear personal friend is the only time I've ever volunteered on a campaign. I was trained formally in a classroom setting, in several classroom settings, by officials who ran organized labor for the country, American Federation of Labor, Congress of Industrial Organizations, and they would send people like me to Cornell University and different places where they're teaching this, like poli-sci in any university setting. But you always married to an externship of sorts because there's a testing ground there. I also had to, when I found myself a congressional staffer, I was putting classes, you know the name David Plum? Who is David Plum?
He was Obama's
campaign manager. So I also put in classes with people like that because of where we were. He was working for Dick Gephardt at the time. And formal trainings then would be done by large NGOs like Emily's List. You've heard of Emily's List? Mm-hmm. So they put women in office, right? And look for big short women all over, regardless of where you're running the aspirations or ballot. So then I find myself in like, boy, I went through a training. I went through a campaign management training. With an incident like that, I went through several different campaign management. There was also one that was challenging. It was just about fundraising. You spend a week to 2 weeks doing nothing but fundraising. Then you do a communications thing. How does the media behave? And one of these things had young people like myself at the time in a hotel, like sequestered in a hotel. And they would wake up in the middle of the night. You'd be up working hard, like you're maybe doing a battery of modules or doing stuff, knocking on doors and doing a message thing, come back and recording a message. And then so you're exhausted. And then you're foolish enough to go hang out with your buddies at the bar for a minute. Now it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you go to sleep. And they wake you up at 2:30, 2:45, and tell you and slip a thing on your door, and it's a press release or it's a news reel. An item just broke about your candidate or the person you're running against. You got to respond to it because you're in charge. Everybody looking at you in the morning. You said you wanted to be a consultant. You said you want an office. You want to run for office. You had to put your team together, but you the lady. You got to respond. You don't get no sleep. So now we got to go to the banquet room, and we got to battle this, and we got to cut off in teams, and we got to do this. And this crazy kind of a module. So I was taught a certain kind of a way that sounds very, very different from what you hear people say they learn how to run for office, especially in our local community, right? This is the way David Plum was trained also. Right? It's the way a person who runs a gubernatorial campaign, most of that is how they learn it because of the respective business and assignments. So the very first thing is, don't take shortcuts in what you Google up and look for. You don't need to learn this all from a consultant, but you have to first become a student. But I did all that to give you a level of research and marrying yourself to the details of the instruction of the profession and the business and the industry itself. So I'll read a different set of things. And I'll tell you another thing I used to do as a young person. I remember as a young staffer in Congress, the boss said one day, the member said one day, I know one thing, all of you better know how to explain how a bill becomes a law. Guess what? I could do it. I was at the conference table, and I was nervous many a day in that job. My very first day in that job, I had been the campaign manager, and so I was used to working crazy late hours. And I went over to what was then our congressional official office after hours, later, I mean like 10 o'clock at night. And I was doing whatever. And I got a call. And the person says, I need you. Good, I'm glad I caught you there. Say, I'm gone. Long gone, long gone. I just come on running a campaign. I'm brand new. The person says, I need you to craft a letter to the White House. True story. Now, this is before Google and all that stuff, y'all. And I go, geez, how do I start that letter to the President of the United States? Hold on, I'm embarrassed to say, what's the address again? I know it's Pennsylvania or something. Man, that member had a ball talking for years about how I got dipped in fire, right? Especially, in learning how a bill becomes law, where you can explain it as if you're a teacher of it, right? And you realize that our community can't explain that stuff. They don't even know how many people in Congress. They think a senator is, you got Congress and then you got Senate. Come on, man. People don't know, right? So I had to learn on a different kind of a letter to go back to answering, a different kind of a level and a different kind of theater of learning. There's another funny story about how I learn. So people, after a while, if you're a consultant, they'll start to make comments like, there he is, that's the politician there. That young fella there, he's the politician. I used to be insulted by that at first. But then you start to realize, yeah, people see you as a political science kind of expert, right? So with that, I realized some things I can't explain, I better learn how to explain. Guess what I did? And an older person told me to do it. I started watching shows like Meet the Press. Back then it was Tim. He was brilliant, it was amazing. So I started watching Tim Russell. And he'd have a politician on his show. And he'd ask a question. You know when Herschel Walker stayed, he didn't do workout, he had zero body fat near it, and doing commercials, he just did push-ups. So for me, that was like my natural kind of push-up thing, right? And I went there, there was a talk show on, interviewing a candidate, I always stopped myself to pay attention. I don't care what was going around crazy around me. It was like Herschel doing those spontaneous push-ups. So I had to train my brain, right? And so he would ask a hard question, and Tim Russell used to throw him on. Hard questions. And I would practice answering the question just like I'm hearing that person start to answer it. Then I would challenge myself to answer it before they spit it out, because they're going to try to stay on point. Somebody told me to always say this instead of that. Try to dodge the question. Let me stop and say this. Always answer the question. I don't care who tells you differently. Why you got to answer the question? Because, Ron, when you see them not dodge the question, you know they dodged it, don't you? Always assume that your audience is as smart as you are. You can learn how to stay back on message and pivot from it, but answer the question like Bill Clinton did. That's why Barack told him I'm going to put him in charge of explaining stuff in chief, because he was good at answering the question as a country boy's mama told him to do. Answer the question. And answer it in a way where the answer teaches. Now you got him. You got to dodge a question to make somebody be impressed. Who made up that rule in politics? That irritates me. That irritates me when I see that play out now, because we think that's the way you do that thing. I hear Elizabeth Warren do it every time. It drives me crazy. Somebody told her that works. Don't let it work in our community. We need to awaken our community.
Facts.
Where was I?
You're talking about answering questions.
Right, so, Tim Russell on the show. Yeah, doing the thing. Yeah, so then I realized it's not just being able to answer the question, Roland. It's also being able to answer the question before they can answer it. And so I got pretty darn good at stealing the answer. It took a while to do that. Try it. watch Joy Reid on Saturday or Sunday interview somebody. Or watch the guy who does, I'm drawing a blank, the guy who does Meet the Press now. Or watch anybody. Watch Fox if you got to watch Fox. If you watch. Whatever it is, just try it. It's going to make you feel pretty dumb at first. And answer it in a way where you get to the answer, not where they are trying to dodge it and spin their platform. Try to answer the question first.
So if I can interrupt, it's 8 o'clock, and did you say what you wanted to say, and why do you run?
Yeah, so it's 8 o'clock now.
Because we should get on to the next thing.
Right. So I wanted to pick on somebody. Almost an hour ago. I wanted to pick on somebody and let them tell me why they're running now. Now that we've done all this.
Ask the woman with $50,000 in her word test.
All of y'all over there.
Oh, yeah, okay. I received it.
Yeah, I'm going to pick on you.
Me?
Yeah, so tell us again, why are you running? Don't be nervous. You're with friends. You can mess up right here.
I don't know anybody in this room. Well, I'll tell you, the reason that I'm running is because I believe that the way we restore our community is through protecting our families. The way we protect our families is restoration and community, education and justice. By education, what I mean is I believe we should fund education from the crib to career. But education isn't enough because I can tell you personally, when I had a bachelor's degree, my husband had a master's. Neither one of us made money making $20,000 or had a job paying more than $20,000. We almost lost our home. We couldn't pay our bills. So beyond education, in high schools, I believe we need to transition from counselors to career development, because the way that the world is changing, college isn't for everybody.
All right, let me stop you.
Yes.
Thank you. Let me come back to you. Let's pick it apart. What's wrong with it? What impressed you? What impressed you?
Buzzwords.
How she observed the crowd and had, for a beginner, had minimal body movement.
She had a personal message, that's what impressed me, and her message touched some of the things that people who go to school or go to college do. And personally, I love millennials, everybody who knows me know that, so you had a message that can resonate with millennials, which is a part of the population that's going to be a large voting bloc for the future.
Ron?
I saw the beginning of a structure, you know, it was like an overall statement, and then she began to take it into pieces, you know. You talked about education, and you was like, by education I mean, so you could follow that logic, and the challenge would be, you know, if you've got 5 minutes to answer that, you want to be able to run through those quicker. But that, I saw that train of thought. It wasn't scattered. It was I could.
Very good. Very good.
She sounded confident and sincere.
And sincere, you said?
Yeah.
Yes.
She used buzzwords that appeal to values. So when you hear words like education, you hear words like community, it appeals to values that is common in almost any place that you would go. So most people can resonate with that.
And what I heard, this was a dynamic platform. She talked about the restoration of families. If you're going to run, to me, for you being so young, and you're talking about the restoration of families, you get everybody.
What else? Good things. What else? What was wrong with it? Was she too all over the place?
Yeah, it wasn't linear.
You think?
No, I'm saying it wasn't linear, right? So
Linear.
it's really
Okay.
more generalized.
Okay. Was she all over the place? Was she scattered?
Not necessarily.
It was a lot of different.
A lot
Yeah,
of different things.
correct.
So
It was a lot there.
right. Let me put something else up here. Do you have a consultant? Is somebody teaching you how to do this?
So there was a young lady that I had, but it was temporary, and I understood that from the beginning, but I don't have her anymore.
Right. Have you run for office before?
No.
Okay. So guys, yeah, and then I'm impressed too. Listen, Barack called Clinton he was going to let him be the explainer in chief. Right. I remember when he got my attention as the governor of Arkansas. And it was one of the earlier debates. And he was asked a question and he answered it kind of like that. The highlight that was similar to what she said, what this young lady just said is, he told a story. Now, he told a vignette of a larger story. It was one of the first exercises I gave you. You had to write a what?
Stump speech.
You had to write a what? An extended what? Story. You forgot.
So which is the stump speech?
No, did you have to write a story? Did you have to write a biographical story? You had to write your personal story. That was your assignment. He had to write a personal story. So I will have a client running for office write your story. I don't care how long it ends up being. Sometimes it ends up being pretty long. And what I understand, what I've learned from this man or woman, lawyer, judge, I've had them all, hospital system CEO, lots of lawyers, they learn something about themselves. And they learn it in ways that when they regurgitate it back to me, without exception, I don't care how big the man was. I see a big basketball player, I see an ex-football player, they tear up. To me. When you feel your story like that, you can pick vignettes on the fly, on the pivot. You can pick a vignette based on where you are, right? Work on your story. The other thing, she apparently has done this before. If I were a consultant, I'd tell her, you ain't done this enough. And I'd be particularly indicting of her because she understands the basics of what to do. She just ain't doing it enough. I tell people, you gotta practice your stump speech to yourself, these speeches and your story, when you get it right, so much, till you start to feel like you're being silly because you're saying it so much. Say it to yourself so much. Anybody had to learn a piano? The very first thing you have to pick up at a piano, you have to do it over and over again. You have to do it 50 times after you knew it. You got to do it that way because you got one opportunity to do it to somebody to change how they see politics for the rest of their lives. Because the way that she explains why she's running is very different from how incumbents locally usually explain it. They don't peel down like that, Jack. Good job, sister.
Oh, thank you.
Can we pick on somebody else?
Yeah. let's see where we are with time here. I may have to move on, right? Where are we with time? What time is it?
You're into the how do you win?
Right. Well, let's try to pick on one more first. I can agree with that.
Can I volunteer somebody?
You want to volunteer somebody?
Ruth.
Who? Okay. All righty. You ready?
Yeah, so what is that you want
The question is, stand up and tell us you're among friends. You can mess up here because you're in the classroom. It's the place you can mess up. Ain't no right and wrong. So somebody just asked you on the camera, so why are you running?
I'm running for the office of sheriff because I've been there for 30 years. I've witnessed a lot of corruption in the sheriff's office. I understand the oppression that the staff is going through in the sheriff's office, and I can change that. The citizens, along with the inmates, are being charged exorbitant fees for various items. It's costing the taxpayers a fortune. It's costing the inmates and their families a fortune, and it needs to stop. Right now, we're padding one politician's pocket while everybody else is suffering. I want to change that. Those inmates are suffering in that jail. There's mold issues, there's food issues, there's health issues, there's mental health concerns. Nobody's addressing that because all that is closed off from the public. I see that. I've not been a silent voice. I've been inside that jail telling them, you can't do that. You need to do this. My voice was always overridden because it's a small single voice. Well, I want to make my voice thunder. I want to make it loud. I want to make it clear that the citizens are not going to tolerate anymore what's going on in that sheriff's office. What happened under the Jarvis administration, what happened under the Bonner administration, can't continue to happen. It has to stop. This jail has to be taken back. It has to be given to the taxpayers. We have to be more transparent. You have to see, you have to believe that when those inmates come through that jail and tell you it's happening, it is happening. Don't come in there as commissioners and do tours, walk through that jail and on guided tours that we're taking you on because we're going to take you to the nice places. You're missing it. You're missing the mold they're living in. You're missing the food. You're missing the medical care. I want to change that. I have a heart. I feel for these people. 30 years I've given to that place. I've watched those officers suffer. I've watched the inmates suffer, and it's just time for it to stop. It's time for somebody to come in who doesn't want to be a celebrity in DeKalb and who wants to be a sheriff for DeKalb, and I'm that person.
There you go. Go ahead.
All right, you got him crying in here. I never seen Ron crying. So, yeah. Very good. Very good. Let's pick it apart. What was first? What impressed you about it first?
Passion.
Conviction, the story.
We're gonna talk about that. What else?
Straightforward.
Straightforward. Explain what you mean.
Direct.
She was very direct.
Very direct on what she wanted to
Tone
do.
and delivery.
Correct.
What else, guys?
The issues.
Experience.
There you go.
So she did do that, didn't she?
Yeah, some of it she touched it.
What is it about her experience you remember?
30 years. The amount of time.
What could that have become a story?
Correct.
30 years, man.
And it can be backed up by newspaper.
You got them crying. Make them cry a little bit more. 30 years as a peace officer. So let me ask you another question. Was it y'all know what I mean? Was it esoteric? Was it too esoteric? Was it too germane to shop talk? Could you see it apply or applicable in ways that mom and pop out here who don't know what the sheriff's office does might have some interest in?
Yes, because of newspaper articles.
Gotcha. So think about your story in context of making mom and pop feel the same kind of relevance to, oh, that's what happens there. Vis-a-vis, that's what could happen at a jail. You know, in our community, we don't care about the jail. The only thing we care about the jail is that it's still the biggest piece of commerce in the southern part of the county. You know what happens at that. We don't want to talk about the fact that in urban, suburban communities like DeKalb County and Metro Atlanta, one out of every 4 of our families has somebody with a background in sheriff. They've been through or currently on. Hold on. Every other man of color who looks like you and me has a criminal history, arrest, a system story. We don't want to talk about that in our community. I had an elected official tell me, Roland, stop talking about our dirty language, our dirty laundry so much. This is a company that's been in office a long time here. We don't get to clean up stuff unless we help people see that it's dirty. In ways that doesn't indict anybody. You're just highlighting yourself as a social innovator with ideas that apparently haven't been talked about before. That's how you get attention.
Or done anything about.
Obviously not done anything about. So think about the story thing is really big when you're doing that. And anybody else want to volunteer?
Can I just say one more thing?
Please.
I heard you speak at the NAACP meeting, and one of the things you said there that I thought was very important was the fact that you've been the interim sheriff, and that gives you legitimacy. I would always say that because then people know that you've held the position and can do it. And people had faith that you could do it, so they put you there.
And there's one thing that I would say. I was moved too. I'm glad to meet you. solutions are key. I believe if anybody's gonna run for office, they shouldn't just say things, that they should provide a solution to issues. So if I had an answer to what you were saying, I would do an anonymous tip to code enforcement. To shut you down,